Wareham Finance Committee. It's snowing everywhere. And this is Wednesday, January 11th, 6:30 PM, room 27 at the Town Hall. Mr. Clerk, can I ask call the roll, please?
Well, all present, Jody Smith, Tom Hannon, Dominic Camarano, Tom Worthen, Gerald Stefanski, Julie Moran, Norma Scogan, Bernie Pigeon, and myself.
Thank you. May I ask our technician, is this, these microphones powerful enough just to pick up our general conversation?
Yes.
Thank you. It's a new way instead of passing the mic around. Good, thank you very much. And the first item on our agenda is our minutes. Accepting minutes, as you all know, there seems to have been some difficulties down in the town clerk's office that our minutes that had been turned in didn't seem to be either recorded or posted. That process is being examined by the chair of the Board of Selectmen now and trying to get some corrections in that process. So not only is it posted and also posted on the town website, but also that we have some verification to us that we turn it in, because now we just turn it in, they stamp it and they put it in their file. And they scan it in and it's posted on the website. But we know we've turned some in, we've accepted a large number of the minutes that we're gonna do again redundantly this evening. But we don't have verification and we don't know what or where it's happened. So we're going to try to just catch up, so to speak, because apparently previous to 22, that would be 21, all the minutes are posted. And the error started from the beginning of 22. And so we're gonna do that this evening in 3 batches. In that, and Jody and Norma and I have all gone through this. As the first batch, the only people who cannot vote would be Tom and Julie and Norma. Then starting with March 16th, Norma can join in for the balance of those through 6/29. And then from 7/13 through 12/1, the entire committee can participate in voting. We did not go through the attendance to see which one of us may have been absent at any particular meeting. So I would assume that doing carte blanche should cover hopefully any absences, and we'll have a quorum for each one if we were to do that. I'm sorry, Derek. Derek Sullivan just walked in, and we don't have a very comfortable chair for you. My apologies.
Alan could give up his.
I don't think he's gonna ask Alan.
No, sir, you keep yours.
Okay, continuing on for the acceptance of minutes. I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes of February 2nd, February 9th, March 3rd, March 9th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. You all have received a packet containing all the minutes that we're going to be discussing this evening. So are there any comments or changes to that group? There being none, all those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any absence? Nope. Very good, thank you. For the next group of minutes, we'll start with March 16th, March 23rd. Again, March 23rd, because one of those was for the meeting of the Upper Cape when we had lunch.
Bernie, excuse me, interrupt you.
Yes,
Shouldn't the people that were there abstain?
we didn't go through to identify who was.
No, I meant.
Oh, I'm sorry, you mean to
Yeah,
count for these abstentions?
I think they should say that for the record.
Very good. That would be 3, Tom, Julie, and Norma, or would be
Just to
abstaining.
keep it right.
Okay. The next one to start over, March 16, March 23rd, March 23rd, March 30th, April 13th, April 25th, June 8th, and June 29th. And in this group, Norma could vote on this, and Tom and Julie will abstain because they had not yet been appointed. May I have a motion, please, to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 It's unanimous with 2 abstentions. The next item B, accept the following minutes. In this case, it's after the reorg, so everyone can vote in this case. We go from July 13th, August 24th, September 14th, September 21st, September 28th, October 1st, October 5th, October 13th, October the 15th, October 24th, November 10th, November 16th, and 12/1, December 1st. That last one is the joint meeting we had with the school committee and the selectmen.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those, any discussion? Any comments, corrections? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Being none, all in favor? Unanimous? And in that case, can I ask our clerk to turn them into the town clerk's office? Thank you very much.
Who's gonna be sleeping better now that all this has happened?
I would suggest Paul first, because there's a notice on the board
That
that
she's
it
on
was closed
breakfast.
today, yes, and it's subsequent to that.
Sure.
Next item on our agenda is our general discussion with the town administrator, and he has indicated this evening he's going to go into some detail for us. So appreciate that very much. So, Mr. Sullivan, you have the floor.
Hello, good evening.
Happy New Year.
Just say official Happy New Year. Hope it works. Just going through a little bit of what you're looking at, or what we'd be looking at for revenues. Obviously, the state aid and assessments are, for lack of a better term, a crapshoot, especially with the new governor in there. So it's gonna be the governor's budget coming forward. So as always, we've been sort of, if you will, just been very conservative on those estimates. So coming through here, you have your first item is your real estate taxes. So I did an FY '23, what was approved at town meeting, but this isn't just what's approved at town meeting. It's actually what we had for new growth and what the final state aid came in for the year. But the rest of it's essentially what was from town meeting. So you see your real estate taxes versus one year from another. What people should know is Proposition 2.5 limits you to what your new levy base would be. And I'm just gonna stand up for a minute. So when you see we've got this amount here, the reason why that's not brought over is that includes the debt exclusion, which does not get increased by 2.5. So basically, what you're taking to get this number here is your real estate taxes, your authorized new growth, which is 2.5% of that number, and then your new growth, which we had a decent year of new growth. In the early 2000s, this town was experiencing close to $1 million at different points. I think that was especially probably in the when the Wareham crossing came in, and people always ask, well, where did that money go? Well, it got swallowed up because that new revenue is really new revenue for that 1 year. You don't keep on getting that amount on top of it each and every year. So I can see how sometimes that's confusing. So you have this number here, which again is based from these three. Your 2.5% of that. So that's why 2.5% does not mean your individual taxes. It's based on the levy base. Taken about a 4 or 5 year trend on our new growth. So 450,000 seems to be a decent estimate. Our lowest had gone down about a few years ago to about 400, but we've been traditionally going over. I am getting a little nervous about new growth, and I'll show you that on another slide. So the debt exclusion, just a slight reduction. So this is our new, if you will, and that's the debt exclusion I should mention is for the elementary school. So only about 19 more years of that.
Go by like
So-
crazy.
So if you look at it realistically, this is a direct offset, what you'll see in that down below. So you're about 1.61 million and change in new tax revenue.
Derek, the growth that you're calculating, that as you drive around town, you see an awful lot of construction. but that isn't yet reflected in what your estimate.
Yeah, so when you think about it, it's the growth of what's sort of the new valuation. If it's a house that's getting some updates, certain things, it's just what you're really getting into it. When you think about it, to get about, at 10,000, we're about just under $10 per thousand in our assessment. So to get 550,000 or so, you had to basically have about what do you have, about 500 million in increases when it comes down to it. So when you look at your neighbor put on an addition or something like that, that's, there is some new growth, but how much of that is really, when you think about it, what's the real value overall to the town's budget? So you can see a lot of new growth, but it doesn't amount to too much when it comes down to it, when you think about it, to make a dent. So I think at one time we were looking at, you had to have almost $100 million of new growth to get $1 million.
Yeah.
So,
And part of it, is part of it, Derek, too, with the sewer tie-in, that, commercial growth right now, we've got a bit of a challenge.
yeah, you can see, we haven't been told no on anything so far, but that is something, you won't start feeling that till basically now and going forward and every year thereafter, sort of a multiplier on that of what you could have. Because some of the things you're seeing, the construction are existing sites that were torn down, so they already had, like the car wash where the old 99 was. So, for example, is one that already had hookups for sewer, and they're recycling some of their water, so don't all worry that it's going right down the sewer. School chapter 70, this one's always tough for me. I saw that the superintendent, they predicted about a couple new students there, which is good. That should help a little bit on it. We've been, as our student population's gone down from a little over 3,000 to the low 2,000s, we've had what's called held harmless. They've not reduced our aid because we've had less students, but the only thing you're getting basically has been, the $20 per student or the $30 per student. So for me, it's always tough. Do I take that you've got 2,200 kids and multiply that by $30 and there's 66,000 for you? I've gone a little bit higher. You can look at it where just about a 1% increase is basing it, and that's made with some of the new students and just seeing what's going on. The millionaire tax, I think people need to realize, I haven't called it the fair share, I still call it the millionaire tax. But this will be the first year the funds are coming together. So you wouldn't see that for budgeting until FY '25, maybe FY '26, just depending on it. And we really have no clue what's actually gonna come out of that for the schools.
Because irrespective of how much money they collect, it's up to the legislature to appropriate it.
Correct. Yeah, and it's going to be how it gets broken down through the political process, if you will, of DESI. Those allocations go in.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to follow just the Chapter 70 formula. I think they're going to be doing a couple different things. I'm hoping with some of the challenges we have, we would see a greater percentage than just a division. Because we do get a little more state aid than other communities due to our poverty level. We have some offset though, because we've got some higher land values. What people don't realize, they talk about the summer homes and stuff. Well, in a way you lose out, right? Because in the equalized valuation, how your aid comes together is based off of your land value and the resident's ability to pay. We've got a lower ability to pay, that's changed somewhat. You can see through the CDBG, some areas not automatically considered. But as your land values go up, that's directly offset. So we would be receiving more aid if we didn't have these land values. And what people need to realize as well is just because things are selling for more, that doesn't increase the levy base that we can actually tax. So, the homes selling for more doesn't automatically doesn't create new revenue.
Does it sound like dollar for dollar?
Correct,
Well,
yeah, so you have your levy base and things will be adjusted on there, and then that's where it comes in. So, while, is somebody that's selling their home for more, or something, you won't see the direct offset or increase to our taxes.
I noticed, Derek, again, not to get on the school budget, but the grants, like for 2023, we were at like special ed, dear to my heart, we had 741, fiscal 22, now it's 1.3. Just more kids, different tiering, do you know?
I'd have to have them
Yeah,
speak to
respond.
certain things.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, now all of the schools have free lunches throughout the Commonwealth, which is it's a great thing, right?
Mhm.
It's a very good. Before that, because more than 50% of our population was below the certain income line, all our students had free and reduced lunches automatically. So this was something that was happening already to our demographics. And as you know, and I have two children, both have IEPs and one is high functioning autism. So whether you're on IEP or not, it's not a suggestion on your family. But what it is a lot of times the socioeconomics follow that as well. There's outliers and things, so we know that our kids sometimes have more needs. We do know that there's kids in tough situations. I will bet that any one of you knows of a grandparent raising a grandchild right now. And sometimes it can be a single grandparent, not just grandparents. We've got certainly some challenges. There's different ways to focus on it educationally. I believe with that, the IB program stuff, the thought was to focus on, to try and bring people back that had gone to other schools. But that's an expensive thought, and the per pupil expenditures for that's pretty darn high. So that's just, obviously I'm not an educator, it's not my background and such, but we know that we have a lot of kids that need help. I think that's what the plan had been, to use the grants. That's why a lot of those ESSER grants were to help offset the loss of learning. I had a kindergartner that she already has some learning issues, and trying to put her in front of a computer at the beginning of this and thinking she was just going to listen and pay attention and get yelled at for having a snack or a drink while you're on the computer. Let them have whatever they can, that'll help them concentrate.
And what most people don't realize is that in the program for food, lunches and all, during vacations, they've sent food home. And during the summer vacations, that whole period, they're still feeding those children.
And that's,
And weekends, a lot
Yes.
of times.
yeah, and there's breakfast available, and I think it's fantastic, because do you think about somebody going into a learning environment, how do you learn when your basic needs of food
Yeah.
aren't met, so.
But fortunately, the federal government subsidizes that program,
Yeah.
with the exception of there's 3 or 4 that we pay their medical benefits. But for the most part, the program's self-sustaining.
So just going through the charter schools, if you remember, we had a big increase in our assessment and a big increase in our charter school reimbursement. They don't giveth without taketh, or taking. So that, I cannot tell you, because they hit the 100%, I think, reimbursement mark, last, or this fiscal year. I really cannot tell what's gonna happen with that, one way or the other. And
That was
it's going-
COVID driven.
Right, and it's going to depend on really the enrollment. An interesting thing was, and I have to go back on, so I apologize, I don't have it in front of me. One of them, the school choicing out went down, like really had a downward plummeting, and then the charter school shot up. So it was interesting, what happened there? The school also had a lot of kids go to homeschooling, which makes sense, right? If you're, that's some of the things that occurred through COVID, for fear, for the realization that trying to work and monitor your child while they're trying to learn on the computer in your home is darn near impossible. So you look at it, you're really looking at only about 136,000, maybe 137,000 in aid. We'll know about that, I think on the 25th or something. When did they release their budget? Is that the 25th for the school? No, for the Commonwealth. The governor has it, or the MMA.
He probably, I think it's on the 20th of his.
Yeah, so we'll see what we get out of that, and that's going to be, that usually creates a shuffle for me. Unrestricted general government aid, that's usually based on some of their collections, so you're looking at just a simple 2-3% range. The veterans benefits, that's, you'll see, you'll actually see that there's an offset, so we pay, close to 405,000, of which 25 is for the veterans agent that we share with communities from Bourne to Sandwich to down there. So we have the veterans agent 2 days a week for about 25,000. It's actually really a great setup.
What does the veterans agent do?
Well, the veterans agent for veterans within the community helps them with their benefits, with registering. We actually pay out close to 380,000 in veterans benefits to those that live within our town. So they should be a conduit for a way for our veterans to get help.
Yeah. Good veterans agents do a lot.
Yeah.
They do,
They do a real lot.
they do.
Yeah.
I've been
So
down
they're
to
a
see
couple
what the
days a
attendance
week?
for.
Yeah, they're in, Mr. Gottschalk's in here, I think twice a week. If you go to the website, it gives the hours that they're in there.
And that's open to any veteran who's a resident of the town?
Right, and you can call, make appointments, some people show up, and maybe you can't be helped as much as that time. I always, when I'm trying to set up an appointment, I always try and give as much information, so when it happens, you've got the information.
It could be a spouse too.
Yeah, yeah, it's a right spouse, so. They've done some nice things, cause it's, where are you going for your benefits? Are you going to Providence?
Right,
It's,
that's what my family member does.
yeah.
He lives in Wareham.
So state-owned land, that's what we get back for almost a payment in lieu of taxes for some of the state-owned land. So our general government, when you look at it between the town and the school, until we see what's coming out of the cherry sheet, it's been a pretty good conservative estimate on it. Obviously the hope is to not go backwards. So this is, before we get into local receipts, I just wanted to do a sort of a multi-year trend on these. It's as simple and basic as possible. Motor vehicle excise tax, you can see it can go down on us for some of the years, but we're in that wave right now that's really doing pretty well as the pricing's going up, and people have been getting new cars because you couldn't get a used car if and that gap between a new and used car was really crazy. We had an issue with the car we bought in 2021, two major issues, and just didn't feel it was safe, and it wasn't, we were told you had to have 3 major issues before they'd buy it back. I said the third would be death.
Right.
Yeah. But we ended up selling it back for more than what we'd bought it for, and sorry, not to them, but to another dealership, which
Yeah,
was
the
pretty
market was
wild.
crazy during that time.
And then but then you had to buy full MSRP, which was something I've never done in my life. I was begging them just to do $1 less, so I could claim I got it less than an MSRP. Local rooms occupancy excise, all right, so this one's actually interesting. You're seeing it going up pretty well. But part of that is we've got the short-term rentals, and they haven't been breaking it out for us, they've been including it in the local. So it really looks like beforehand, we were in the mid-200s. Your real spike, what you see is in FY '21. Why? Well, in FY '20, when the whole program was coming in as well, don't forget, they said people didn't have to pay rentals for short-term taxes and were able to push them aside. So you saw your first jump in FY '21, and then FY '22 is when you saw more of a full realization. So that's helped to almost double our excise when it comes to rooms, and that's the short-term rentals. Boat excise, it's been neutral, really, if you look at it, so give them that.
Couldn't get a boat in 2020.
Yeah. No, nobody was doing it.
That
so.
year, yeah.
Cannabis, why am I doing that as a negative when it's clearly higher than the first year there? Well, FY '20 is going to be our highest year ever. Why? We were the 3rd to 4th dispensary opening up in the entire Commonwealth. So our market share was humongous. You know, we were essentially from the Cape almost down to Rhode Island, you're seeing it. So that is our best year, and it's going down. We also know that the impact fees, the 3% impact fees, the cannabis lobby has gotten to the legislature, and they're essentially knocking that out. And that's a real shame, because what was promised to the Commonwealth was that this was going to raise money for the communities. And to take that away while the Commonwealth keeps its full portion from its high initial tax, I think is a sin.
Is that a done deal?
They've gone through it, they've done the legislation. We're still fighting because how can you retroactively change agreements that we already have? But those agreements are maxed out at 5 years, so no matter what, at the end of those, even though we've got some already saber rattling litigation and such, but, you know, my thought is you made a deal, you stick by it. But attorneys don't seem the same way sometimes. They find the loophole. So the fees, that's also, we had a little dip in '20, makes sense, but we're pretty stagnant on the fees. The rentals, in this building, we have, it's called Omni Point. It's actually a tower up top, which T-Mobile rents out. And that's really most of our rentals now. We get a small amount from the Oak Grove School, about $1,000 a month. You used to get some from the Boys and Girls Club and some others, so that's why you see sort of the nosedive off of it. So that was also in trying to work with the Oak Grove Cape Verdean Cultural Council. When they were awarded their lease of that building, it was a low lease, which is fine. It's a great thing to have them active in the community, and I think it's a real benefit to the heritage of this community. So licenses and permits, this is the one that's making me nervous right here. By nervous, I mean, you know, clearly you have spike events. So let's say the Walmart, when Walmart came in, that can be 250, 300,000 in fees. So as we're having less of these big, big projects, you'll see your fees are starting to go down. So we're actually lower than we were in FY18. So that's one of the trends that has me a little nervous. You would think with everything going on, you'd have a lot more licenses and permits, but not necessarily.
What about the solar developments? Do we get any significant?
Yeah, so they'll be
Permits.
permitted, I think the solar developments are based on X percentage of the valuation of whatever the project is. You know, cause we have to have our, electrical inspectors out there, you have anything. So those two, you'll get something out of a
Kill every
project.
one of them, though.
What's
They're
that?
shooting down every one of them that's come across now.
But
There's issues, I'm just
yeah,
saying.
no, there's
Well, it's
issues
not
with
my-
them, but you're not wrong. Those are one of the ones where you can get
But
6
al-
figures out of it.
But also aren't the permits, building permits going down because of the sewer moratorium?
Well, that's what we talked about it, so that's where we're trying to figure out, because it's, is it going down? The licenses and permits are going down, but is the construction going down? Because if you're telling me, I want to add a bathroom to this house, I can't do it or a bedroom because of the sewer moratorium. And not me, because I made sure to get all my permits when I was doing the basement you were commenting on, because I knew someday it would haunt me if I didn't. But, you're gonna have some weekend warrior work being done,
Yeah.
so, above and beyond what already occurs.
Well, it's been a lot harder to find contractors. It took us 18 months to find somebody to side a house on Main Street.
Yeah, we went through a few, to do some other work. We're moving my mom into the house, so we're trying to build out that section, which is why the basement was necessary. I did some of the basement work there, which is why it took so long. But we went through a few of them, and it was a 30% difference between some of the quotes we got.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I've seen the same thing.
Yeah, and we got the people that were recommended that were so good, and they thought, if this fool says yes, we'll do the work, but. So yeah, there's gonna be, I could see all that sort of squeezing things right now.
Big drop though.
So
And
that's,
going down. Yeah,
right,
trending
so
down.
that's the trend that has me concerned. Fines and forfeits, those are kind of mercurial by their nature, just depending on what happens. So I'm just giving that as a neutral, and it's fine. Also, we should know is we try to never budget more than 90% of the prior full year's collections. That way, if you have a variance, a negative variance, you're usually offsetting it. And any extra income that's going to how we create free cash. So it's just one of the policies that we adhere to. Investment income, I've got as a negative, but it's going to shoot the exact opposite way. Between 19 till around 20, we were actually you were getting some interest in the accounts, and then everything went down, and you basically were getting 0.1%, especially with what we're legally allowed to do for our accounts. But now you're up at over a half, and you might be hitting 1% so you'll see, I actually moved it from, when we only had about 18,000 in one of the prior years, you'll see, we'll do about 100,000 pretty easily for this year and the next, just depending on the rates. I'm thinking, my understanding is we can look forward to 2 more smaller rate hikes at least, so. Medicaid, that's, it's reimbursed for the services done by the school. A few years ago with Dr. Shaver Hood, she got me pretty good because it was the year, I think around 19 thereafter when they had the highest increase, and she said, well, that's really school, so we helped increase her budget by that amount. So, it was funny, cause Kristen brought it up, well, why are we paying for the billings? It's really a town that gets their revenue. I said, oh, no. Circle back to 2019, or FY 19, FY 20, so. So that's good and bad, right? There's revenue that you're getting, reimbursements that has to be collected, but it also means we've got the kids in need that are using. And then miscellaneous recurring, which truly is miscellaneous. It can be each and everything. You really we have some of the solar that's in there, the solar credits. It can be returned checks, it can be refunds, things such as that. So it's, that's been on a bit of a negative trend as well. So, that's just as simple and basic as you can get, just looking at it. So this will now explain when we're going to motor vehicle excise tax. This is what we actually budgeted for FY 23 versus what we're doing FY 24. So you'll see, this is probably the last year we're going to get a big increase from our local receipts. And when you think about it, when you're only getting 3 million or something from your revenue, from your tax revenue, we have lived by the local receipts. So this should be, it's a little bit of a warning going forward to us of where we stand if some of those trends don't reverse. And again, it's during the last Great Recession, the true Great Recession, our motor vehicle excise tax has tanked because people you were holding on to your vehicles. It will be interesting to see what happens with the people that have had to purchase now and doing some things when they're trying to get out of them, because you think about it, people are paying over MSRP, and now the bottom's dropped out of the used car market, which has impacted the new cars. So some people are gonna be in the negative equity positions.
Yes.
So just going through here, you'll see what we took on boat excise. I mean, we brought in over 50,000 in 22, so bring that up slightly. Cannabis, we bring in a little over 400,000 on that, but I do not want to bring into our budget any more than 250,000. People need to remember as well, 25% of all the cannabis revenue goes into the capital stabilization fund, which has a little over $1 billion in it now. And we use the 260 some odd thousand out of that for the police station feasibility study. So just coming through, and again, investment income, we're up to 100K this year, we put it in, and we'll be fine in next year as well. We might be able to put a little bit extra in that, but I personally wouldn't. Medicaid, we brought it down all the way to 240, but it had in 2022 300,000 into it, so bringing up about 35,000 shouldn't be an issue. So at 7,435,000 is about over $500,000 more than what we budgeted for this fiscal year, but we're still less than 90% of the FY 22 collections. So then you're gonna see it's a little different this year. What I'm rather than having these extra town meeting warrant articles, when we have to pay these debt service, because you have to pay it. The town meeting's already approved them, everything. There's just the payment. We're now putting them within the budget when we vote the omnibus document. Why do it multiple times? It'll save some time. So that's where you see the harbor service permit fees. That's the debt that the harbor master's office has, and we're paying it through the harbor service account, which can be used just for those things. Obviously, you can't use that for education, police, municipal maintenance. Community preservation fund, that's for the community preservation debt as well. So they're essentially direct offsets. There's really no gain or a loss. So you'll see an increase of the 326,700, but that's not really a revenue gain. And then the enterprise fund, I've been working on that. It was higher. I've artificially reduced it a little bit by not charging a portion of the in-kind health insurance and health and dental for the town hall employees. We also don't charge payment in lieu of taxes to the enterprise fund, and we also don't charge them for their other post-employment benefit liabilities.
But the enterprise fund is, excuse me, pure money's transferred from the enterprise fund to the general budget. So the
So
water
the-
pollution applies or appears in a separate department in the
Right.
budget itself.
So what you see here is what we pay on their behalf for retirement, health, dental, FICA, the general liability, workers' comp, as well as the work that the town hall employees do on behalf of the enterprise fund, billing, collections, the assessors with their database, my office, procurement, HR, all those.
So you're not charging that back to them?
I'm doing the salary, portion of the salary,
Yeah.
but not the health and dental benefits like we used to, so.
I know we get into the indirect and direct.
You know, and there's, look, if we charged everything that you could and allowably charge for, you'd be over $1 million. So it's, you know, it's more of a political argument when it comes down to it, when some of the folks will go over it. Because you'll have people not on sewer saying, well, why are my town taxes subsidizing this? You'll have, people saying, well, the town is doing its budget, you know, balancing its budget on the enterprise fund. You know, the way I look at it is, a long time ago, they had each and every employee write down when they did something for the sewer department. Yeah, and I looked at that, I said, that's probably one of the silliest things and most efficient things I could think of. Probably coming from a good place, right? But how, you know, just by having them document all it, you've increased their workload that they're doing on behalf of the enterprise fund, right there. It's just,
And whatever monies you think you're saving,
yeah.
you're paying for the clerk that's keeping track of it.
So it's rather than basically hiring somebody to keep track of
Yeah.
everything, you do a percentage, you know, 15% of my department, it's,
Yeah, there's a whole formula that goes along. I can tell you, I had an enterprise account, and I was the only full-time employee, a couple part-time, and my indirect charges were almost $50,000 a year.
yeah.
There's a whole formula, so for the town administrator, for payroll, blah, blah, blah. So it can get pretty hefty, quick.
Yeah, and it's, look, there can be a time where I've seen Doreen spend an entire week on just that department, things going on. And then the next week, maybe you didn't touch it, or maybe it's been more. There's an ebb and flow. So the percentage is the simplest and I think just the best way to go about it. And again, everything else, you know, that's just, it's fighting for the sake of fighting, is the way I look at it. All right, so this is, I've given you very simple setup for the draft revenue and expenses. What this does not include is the town's updated budget for our wages and expenses. It does not include updated for the school, okay? So, before everybody gets excited. So just bring it down, you're seeing everything, what our total estimated revenues are, the 76,838,636. Estimated state assessments, usually we break it down by a few categories. I just did basically the full amount there to keep it simple. The overlay, one of the things you'll probably have noticed, we removed a higher amount in the overlay about 2 years ago, and that's when they started, you used to have to hold on to your overlay for every fiscal year in the past.
Mhm.
So I could have $1 million back there, but they're telling me I'm in an overlay deficit this year because instead of, the 300,000 it caught, we had 400,000 in abatements. So they got rid of that. What that allowed us to do was to adjust and not have to budget as much for that year in, year out. And if something happens, we'd have to vote some monies to the overlay. Some people use it as a savings account. I just don't think it makes sense. I'd rather try and, I don't believe in cutting somebody for that savings account, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When we've got other ways to do it. Health and dental insurance, I'm really projecting a 3% increase for them, which has been good. We've been in 2s, 3s, I'm on the Mayflower Municipal Health Group Steering Committee. It's, so I think just seeing what we're trending at, it is getting a little higher, we're seeing a little bit of the red, but with everything that's been built up in the trust fund, they've got about at least 35 million in the trust fund, and you need, by our standards, you need to have at least 11 million. So it's solid to be able to, and I like what's happening rather than the 0, 0, 0s, big increase, zeros. We're raising rates just on a slow rate, helping each year a little bit with the trust fund, but never so much that you put yourself in danger, so. Retirement LIUNA, we had a big increase to our retirement, expense. It's, we were close to $1 million from the new assessment. Went back, and there was 2 people in the town that we've gone from 143 to 145 versus 20, and the school had gone to 182 from 145, so they had added 37 people, which caused the spike. I think people forget that we have to pay benefits on things. So that spike, interesting thing, whenever we were doing the analysis for the retirement, it was always 40% of the school employees. So those are non-teachers, right? That's the pairs, other types that are in Plymouth County retirement and not the teacher's retirement, which is a separate thing. So that was a bit of a shock to me. What Plymouth, so in their actuarial valuations, we had close to this $1 million increase, and then the following year would be a $175,000 increase. So this was your catch-up, and that was more of your normalization. Working with them, they spread that increase for us out over 2 years, which, is it a bit of gimmickry? Yes, but it helps you absorb the impact of that hit right away. So I appreciate their work. It's, but that's still.
You're up 700,000, I think, from last year.
Yeah, so we're, close to it. So that's, it's a big increase, and it's tough, right? Because that's absorbing an impact, and as Jeff Sweat said, there's about to be a wall hit when these grants go away and what's happening to them. So I'm hoping, which is hope is a 4-letter word when it comes to budgets, that we'll see some decrease in the next actuarial valuation when it comes through, because you can't hire people with grants and then keep them on when the grants go away, unless you've been slowly building up your budget to make that happen.
So Derek, you think some of the 34 are ESSER employees?
Yeah, I would.
Which will go away in theory? In
theory, yeah, I would think, there's no other way I can visually think of how 37 new employees came on board.
As a percentage of,
Right.
of the school,
And
Right.
especially when we've had the last couple of years of budget presentations that they're saying they've required much more and there looks to be a structural deficit. So how could you add during this time structural deficit unless you had an alternative revenue source?
Indeed, when theoretically, if you're hired for the grant doesn't include benefits, so we're still paying for that, and yet they suddenly showed up, 37 extras. There wasn't that many grants that suddenly flushed out. Excuse me.
You know, I think it's, obviously we're working with Matt and Preston and, you know, we appreciate they've done some work on their budget as well to reduce. It's still not in the area of where it can be. Yeah, we're probably looking at something under between 900 to $1 million for the school. And that's why do I say that? So going through, when you see just some of the expenses, you know, nothing too crazy. Yeah, our general liability caught up to us. We had a large increase this year, which is why I'll be asking for a transfer at the spring special town meeting from free cash. The new school hit us for about $90K in additional liability, if you will, liability insurance.
All the insurance costs.
Yeah. So, and then again, you've got the debt exclusion, some of the new school principal interest, short-term interest. And I just packed some of these other ones into other, just for the time being until we hash out all the expenses. School budget, that's the same as FY '23. Upper Cape Cod Tech, small increase, about 120,000. You had me panicked on, but I talked to Roger, so. He of course
More
gave you
kids,
credit.
and more kids.
So not as many as we thought were
Right.
coming, but so,
How many?
Yeah, how many?
I think it was 11 new kids, was it?
11 or 15, something
Yeah,
like that.
so-
New kids.
At one time, you were talking about 35?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they thought there was gonna be a lot more, but then it turned out.
At Upper
not to
Cape.
be.
Yeah, so that's why I think 120 is right in the wheelhouse
It's
for a
interesting,
solid estimate.
both sides are anticipating an increase in students. Where are these kids coming from?
So at the end of it, when we take sort of our fixed cost increases, you know, the wild card on that is obviously the state and county assessments, but that's also the revenue wild card. We're projecting for about 1.68 million to be able to be dispersed between the town and the school. So that's why I'm looking at, you'll be looking at about 900 to school, 800 to the town,
So
something.
Derek, the general government of the 14.5, that's last year's before you
Correct.
add.
Yeah, that's existing, if
Yeah.
you will, today. You know, we've obviously got some increases, look at municipal maintenance budget. Frankly, I'm considering most of theirs is already electricity, fuel and other things, so we're looking at an overall 10% increase to theirs. Just how some of the personnel are shaking out. We have some departments that are almost a 0% increase, cause we've had some senior staff lose, we've lost them, and some newer staff come in. But we have some that are close to 7-8% because of just the way the contracts have come, especially first year of a contract plus people getting steps.
Are new hires coming in at a higher rate you would, because of the, in theory, the job market?
Yeah, we've tried to, there's some that we're still lagging on, we've brought, you know, certain categories up to a more fair market value with also the ability to reach what would be considered the fair market. Sewer's been, the hiring for that's been a bit of a nightmare because we're in the fight with the private sector for that. And anytime we increase as we do through our contract, which you do once every 3 years, they increase immediately. So it's, you kind of wanna get off that carousel and say, rather than fighting and creating this increase ourselves, it might be time to look at whether there's certain aspects we can privatize to make work. That's obviously a collective bargaining thing, so it's, I couldn't go any further on that, but just talking
Yeah.
about that as a theory.
It's a complex issue, and trying to be fair and yet be capable of doing it.
You try and bring the people in based on their knowledge, if you will, but you have people that wanna go to the highest step right off the bat. When we're advertising, we usually do from the start step, which we consider that a probationary step, so that's somebody with limited experience but great potential. You bring them in, maybe they're not quite there, so you have this time to see whether it's going to work out. You know, for example, the building commissioner had started off the start step, and you should congratulate him, he got his commissioner's license, which obviously isn't easy. He got that, so we brought him up and changed that, because he's been, frankly, been very happy with him, and him proving that he can get the commissioner's license was great.
And back to the sewer, there's chronically at least 2 or 3 postings on your board of both here and downstairs for openings in the sewer department.
Yeah, it's, what's interesting is if we had that, if we had it fully staffed because of the health insurance you see from some of the employees, that would actually be even higher when you think about it, cause some of the premiums, family premium, the town's portion can run 22, 23, 24,000 pretty easily, so. We have a 68-32 split.
Right.
Used to be 75-25. What you're not seeing in our positions for hiring, believe it or not, is younger. Younger are chasing the dollar, that you can hop the dollar. The things like health insurance or retirement, it's just not in their purview. We've got some really talented people from the private sector, municipal maintenance, that, if you will, are coming in because they want the stability, and then you're going to want, if the last 10 years of your career, to be vested, to have health insurance during your retirement thereafter. So we're actually seeing that we're hiring people of a higher talent, which does
Yeah,
cost
more skilled.
more, but getting the entry level's really difficult, so.
Eric, in your, the town meeting items you have up there, a lot of that is school cost. Is it possible when you present that there'd be, let's say, a separate line item that would be for the towns, as well as another line item for schools? You broke that out for us just prior to
Yeah.
December 1st.
I'll give it'll be a snapshot in time. That's always,
Yes.
it's always changing as well as employees come and go.
Because people, the town meeting even looks at, let's say there's 29 million that we appropriate for the school department, they don't realize there's another 18 million that we're charging or we're paying for the schools that you absorb on the town side. So they don't realize that we're actually paying
Yeah.
a lot of money to run our school systems, so that when they complain about needing more money, you think, well, look how much we spend. About 60 mil according to our auditors.
And there's no shame in them advocating for themselves, right? That's
Indeed,
what-
of course,
That's what you're
We-
supposed to.
we hire them for it,
Yeah.
or voted for.
So, but there's a reality of what the town can and can't do, and what the town's willing to do as well.
Mhm.
That's a big thing. It's the interesting thing. I would love to see a research paper done on the actual impacts of Proposition 2.5 on the socioeconomic, which actually goes into some of the, if you will, race base as well, because sometimes they'll follow the same logic. And what it's done to communities, or how some communities have lagged. Because I have my own theory on what Proposition 2.5 has done. It's lifted up the wealthier communities, and has taken the wealth, and it's hurt those that are not.
I was on the finance committee when they went through the 2.5 adoption back in the 70s. And the ones who were hurt the greatest were those who had, they were politically orientated, and the selectmen advocated, I'll keep your taxes down. So they started at a low level, unfortunately, and they were never able to catch up to their needs.
So, why would anyone in their right mind want to vote to pay more taxes? I've done it, I've voted to pay more tax before, but when you think about it, it's, on its simplest thing, if somebody's going to vote to pay more, you've lost a whole segment of the population from those that can't, that really can't.
But you pay, you get what you pay for.
That's right.
That's
So look
like,
how
you gotta think
successful-
of it that way also. But
Investment
people
versus,
don't think of it that way.
That's right.
You know, like I said, you pay more, but you're gonna get more.
you're investing in
That's
your
just the way it is.
community.
Dirk, through the chair, I have one other question for you. Has anyone ever done the research or anything for self-insuring?
We were self-insured in our health insurance. The town utilized the trust fund to balance the budget, and it came to an inequity portion where you're supposed to rebalance it every year. And what's in the fund, and there's about $2 million in the fund, is supposed to be at that time, 75% of it, the town, 25% the employees. Because of the monies taken out, was actually reversed. So, out of that 2 million, most of it was the employees, which means we were going to have to put, I think about 4 million into it to rebalance it. It's this, and we were getting 11% increases at the time, annually, running our own internal insurance. This is done well for keeping us steady. Now, Bourne is self-insured, has done really well,
Yeah.
but they've built up an internal trust of about 8 million, so they can ride the ebbs and flows.
Besides the health insurance, like liability or building insurance, has anyone ever done research to see if we're paying out more than what we would have saved if we did it ourselves? Because that's a big area of savings if, that's the word I'm trying to find here.
If you're willing to gamble.
Yeah,
I guess that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It can be highly profitable without claims.
We're looking at some other streams. The town had vicious claims history before when I was coming on board. The Board of Selectmen have really done a great job
Keep
of
that down.
keeping it down, making informed, non-personal based decisions, I guess, which is tough. And that's nothing against anybody else. There's sometimes we all have to maybe eat a little crow when you don't want to, and
Just something I
it's
wanted to
the
bring up.
best interest of the community, so.
Are you against it or for it?
I'm for taking a look at other options, other carriers and such. And as part of
Self-insured
that-
isn't what you feel is the right option?
Seeing that we have a lot of smaller claims, especially, I wouldn't do the workers' comp. I would keep that through, because arranging with doctors, third-party analysis, just the staff I'd have to hire just to do that. would
Right,
be, You know, claims where you think you see it. I'm not against it, but you know me, I lean towards, when it comes to the town's money, I'm pretty
Well,
conservative, so.
I just wanted to feel it out, that's all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One or two or three serious illnesses of some sort, when you're looking at the medical side, could
Well, I
really put
wasn't
a.
so much thinking so much medical, Jody.
Yeah,
like
well, Stoughton
structural
was self-insured
insurance, you know,
where
the
it came from, you
insurance
know,
for,
it-
like,
it had its ups and downs.
fire damage and that kind
And
of
they
stuff.
just brought a new town manager in now, he has to play some catch-up with the insurance, and employees are gonna have a heart attack. I hope as a retiree, I don't, but,
I will tell you, being on I used to have to go through all of it, go monthly, we were using GBS, doing all the run analysis, and you'd have the high-cost claimants, and you find yourself looking at, and they say, okay, that person termed, I'm like, oh, good, that's cost, fortunately, that's a person. And that's, you know, and that's,
Yeah.
so you think about it at our level, now get up into the commercial insurance level with it, so, you know, you understand the stories, and when they say, oh, I can't believe that claim was denied, but you can see what happens, so, I will tell you on a personal level, that's why I'm glad to no longer be self-insured.
Well, I guess you gotta be heartless like that.
oh.
To bring you in on that one, Don.
Heartless, yeah, no problem.
So that was, just giving you some brief on
That was very
what we're
informative.
looking at for the revenues and, just a simple, our fixed cost expenses, if you will.
Can you send that PowerPoint to Bernie, and he can get it out to us? And
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm gonna check it for spelling and stuff. Just working on today.
I wouldn't know if it was misspelled or not, so don't worry about it.
You know, I think if we could get that device to lift the image up further towards the ceiling,
Be a little better.
so that, you know, the people along that edge,
It's a
we
little
can
hard to
look
see.
over their head. I mean, we have Julie who's moderate height, but then there's Tom who's tall.
The chairs are tall.
Take my head off.
We'll factor that in for the new building.
Thank you.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New
Thank
Year.
you. While I have you here, we're gonna work on,
Sorry, I just got an emergency call.
when he looks at his watch,
through his
it's, oh,
chip.
I gotta take this call.
That's on my phone.
But just give some thought to a day in early February in which we would
Yeah.
do all the departments.
I thought that was March something, March 11th, March 10th. or
March, we've done it
6th.
in March, we've done it
I
in
think we've
February.
got it. in
Yeah, I
everything.
thought I had a date.
Could
already.
you do it in March, because usually we've done it, we pushed it back in March during one of the years. We've usually done it on Thursdays in February.
Yes.
I have department heads March 8th, 9 o'clock.
That was last year, we had to move it back.
No,
Yep.
this is what
You
you sent
sent
out
out a
this year.
This is what
calendar.
you sent out,
That's what you
That's
sent
what you
out.
sent out.
all day, March 8th.
Yes.
That is Holly,
But that's the other,
not the holiday Holly.
yeah. Even February
It
would be
is.
preferable,
It is.
if it's convenient for your department heads.
Let's, just looking, the 9th is the, downtown resiliency public meeting. We do and then the 16th, then we go into that school vacation week thereafter, so. with
We're on
this-
Wednesday, you're looking at Wednesday. That's why we had to change it last year, it's because we originally scheduled it in the middle of vacation, and
Right,
that was the next
Yeah.
opportunity.
To the following week.
yeah, so do you think with the 16th, is a Thursday okay? Does that
February
work?
16th is what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
Thursday, February 16th.
Thursday okay for everybody? That would be the all-day, not an evening.
I can do that.
Good. I
Stay
can
on
back the
the
11th.
schedule, good.
That is clear at the moment.
While you're putting dates down, is a municipal finance management webinar on next Wednesday, the 25th, at noon,
Yeah, remember.
which is a state,
11, yeah.
yeah.
When is
From
it?
the DLS,
Huh?
from the Division of Local Services?
No, it's municipal, the Mass
Municipal finance
Association.
management is the title.
Okay.
Do you,
It's an MMA
It's
event.
12 to 1:45, 1:15.
I think I have info on that, I'll put it out to everyone.
Okay.
I have info on that.
Also for
Well, I
information,
mean,
the
it's-
Executive Director of the Mass Municipal Association, Jeff Beckwith, who's been there forever, is retiring in September. which means that whole organization is turned over in less than 3 years.
Yeah, he's been there for a bit, huh?
Longer than you and I combined. That's
Okay, as far as the calendar is concerned, we have the 16th of February. As to our next meeting, there's certain items that are coming in, and when Derek presents to the selectmen his budget, that's when the school department will know what their final figure is that he recommends, and then we can begin considering the school committee and how the impact on Derek's recommendation will take for them, the consequences of it. That'll be the first ones we can legitimately interview, I feel. So as soon as you're through with the definitive, is that, it would be the 25th, I believe, is your
Yeah, I
final
think
date.
it's, I hope to get that out sooner rather than later. Part of that is so that the school can, figure out what's happening for their end and take the necessary steps. I would hope that given, some conversations that happened last year with some school committee members, that the budget that's going forward, while not what they would want or maybe need, is what they understand what's available, and that they would vote that. If not, we'll go forward with what we always have, is the unbalance and then the actual town administrator's budget, which is what goes to town meeting and is voted upon. And that's obviously based on feedback from the Board of Selectmen and yourselves.
Indeed. And it's gonna be an issue for them over there, I feel. They've gotta make some considerations, because this is the last year they'll have for their, the ESSER funds, the extra funds. And it's supporting a large portion of their operation right now.
Yeah, it was, and that was one of the things going back, and I still need to look into it. There was, in the last, in the Great Recession, they were called EDGI grants, and Wareham had received a good sum of money, and it was to save jobs, right? So it was, because that was job savings was the big thing during the recession. Those funds are used to hire people instead of, saving some of the current. And it was a little bit before my time, but realized what happened when I came here, and then looking at it, they hit the wall. And that's when you first started hearing about the major cuts needed and things such as that. It's also, when you look at, now you fast forward, when you look at the history, our biggest change in when the school choice and charter school assessments really started skyrocketing was after the failed override, which was interesting. Why? Two things. It's, you wonder, were those persons that left, you wonder, were they voting for it? Because it's really interesting. You go to Wareham, pay less in taxes, and send your kids to somewhere else where you pay more. It's a smart move when you think about it. But also, did the parade of horribles of what's going to happen if the override doesn't happen also have the people send their kids away? And I think that's one thing that you can't do, is create these, again, the parade of horribles, because it will turn people away that have their students in this. And that's one of the big things we tried to change. That was the support for the elementary school for two reasons. One, the kids deserve a place to learn in a safe and clean environment. If a kid's at home, living in a home that's in tough circumstances, where their roof's leaking, where they don't have certain things, and then they go to a school where it's the same thing, what do they think life is like? And that's why I always thought they should see what can happen if it, and that there's a certain worth to it. But that's my fear, if we start hearing all this fear mongering, if you will, that it will drive people out.
I think it's already occurring, but it's It's the undercurrent that's developing now. And we do extremely well with the amount of funds that we have available to us. Sometimes they should need a little more refocusing, perhaps.
And we got, I think there's great families, there's great kids in this community, that school graduates, kids that go on and to fantastic schools and do the things. We have Upper Cape Cod Tech, it's, you know, not everything should be based around a college education. You know, it's like, lived in Germany for a year, went to their schools and saw you had the gymnasium, the Realschule, different things, so it's, the setup, there should be alternatives, and kids do learn differently as well, so there's certain things.
What we do, my grandson was in regular and he decided to go to Old Colony, and he's National Honor Society.
Yeah.
And he was just barely scraping by. Just the environment, as you point out, some people thrive in it to that change.
So, all right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Derek,
Thanks, Derek.
appreciate it.
So while we're talking about budgets, can I touch on the school budget a little bit and what I
Well, just
discovered?
while Derek's here, because they don't take my word for it, I'm disappointed with the school system. They don't take advantage of a revenue stream that they have that we paid for, and that would be the roof on the new elementary school. That's specially constructed to accommodate solar, for one. Paid extra for it to do that, because we're over and above the snow load. Then we put all those utilities on the ground to go to a separate building out and back that houses all the utilities that would have been on the roof. And they don't make any effort to put out an RFP to see what it would revenue the leasing that roof for solar. And that parking lot, perfect for solar.
Yeah, I think one of the clarifications I had to make for them is, we couldn't take the electricity, but you can lease the space,
Yes.
and that's the difference.
And I keep telling them that. In fact, I had Chad had written a letter and they gave me all the stipulations and the conditions that were specially constructed for that roof to accommodate solar, the extra weight.
So, maybe we'll see some action sooner rather than later.
Hopefully.
You know, it's,
Important.
it makes sense to do it on the roof, especially with the the feedback we've had about, you know, with green space and such, so.
Well, I think we got an extra percentage point or two with the board of directors on MSBA because we included all that in the green section of the building. So we paid to have that extra strength in the roof and the like put in, paying for it for 19 years.
So, have it all set now.
Might as well get a return on the dollar.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Okay, that's the budget. The Department's rule, we got that. With the school budget, oh, that's not, that was a mistake. There is, I have asked Jim Gilberti from the golf committee for a recent copy, or a copy of year end for the Little Harbor Golf Club. And the one we have ends in November, but this will be the closeout for the calendar year. And so we can make a comparison how well it's run, and, because I understand they are making a profit. So they're doing better than they did previous years.
So Bernie, you're asking for that?
Yes.
The reconciliation for. the-
Yes, we have one, I think I printed out to you, gave it to everybody, but we have one for the final year. They're still working on, I know Tom is thinking about it, for the year end for the last fiscal year as well as a year to date. And I spoke to Judy about it directly, I've asked her for them. There was a report that they hadn't received from Treasurer's Office, so they couldn't give us the year to date. Yet, the DOR was held up, is the one who was holding up the closeout for the last fiscal year. I'll speak to her again with that. Not sure where town meeting will be held. I have the last note, I think I copied everyone on it at the time, as the moderator was determining where to hold our previous town meeting. And knowing that the school is now asking, or going to be asking for monies to redo the lighting in that building, it certainly isn't gonna be in time for our next town meeting, so we may very well be back at the elementary school. But that's speculation on my part, I haven't talked to Margaret at all about it. The charter changes, we've had some charter changes. Norma has more than I do in terms of the approval. It finally, couple of them here, it's apparently sat on Senator Pacheco's desk for quite some time.
Senate 2562, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I got 2283, Norm, you and Norm have got the more later one.
Yep.
Somebody's waving to you, you missed. It's Claire.
Claire? Hello, Claire?
There's 2 articles that got approved, everything else is probably gonna be stale and gone.
Yes. I have offered myself and Norma to join a COA meeting to just a general discussion of the process we go through from preparing the budget. And I asked Norma because I figure if I go, it might be a hanging party, you never know, and you need someone to talk about
I'm
it
his
with.
bodyguard, is what he said.
Yes, Alan?
I think on the Council on Aging, we basically made a promise to them that sometime by late spring or early summer, we should have them at the Beaker School. So I think you'll find them to be quite cooperative,
Mhm.
especially with the change in the COA director. It's a huge attitude difference.
Well,
You're gonna have it in the Deacon School in the summer, did I understand that?
The first thing we can do with the Beaker School is to do the COA. That's game number 1.
but as far as this, back to the COA in terms of our appearing before them, Judy, the chairman of the selectmen, has offered to join us also, so I called Sharon Troy, the director of the COA, and I said, Judy and I would both want to go. She said, well, Bernie, I'm still finding out whether or not anybody's interested in you. So it's up in the air. Jody has his info, I believe it's completed, isn't it, Jody?
Yeah, I got to grab an old copy off my desk when I was coming tonight and sent you the new one. That's all right, nothing tricky or fancy in it, but, I'm just, some of the highlights. The school's always been difficult getting information out of them, and you've heard me say before, I could defend the town side budget all day. We got a new business manager over there, Kristen, and she's been excellent, and the superintendent. We went to a meeting, asked for information, got information.
Nice.
Asked questions, got answers. She's been really good. A lot of the information, I met with her after that meeting we had, and she asked me with these numbers I had, where did I come up with those? And I said, from the school department. So I told her, you don't need to go back and look up what they were last year. I'll start out fresh as I did with the town side. But they got some serious issues over there, in my mind. This is just my opinion. I don't, but I look at some of this stuff and I had them break it out into the different departments. And they do have a lot of grant money. And I'm just looking at this one, the assistant superintendent. She's got almost $39,000 in grant money paying her salary. I have a copy of this for everybody. I sent it to Bernie. I wanted to make sure it was, I simplified it as much as I could. It's not a big spreadsheet or anything. It looks just something like this with some pretty colors on it. But the salaries look okay. And I know people are gonna say they're overpaid. But some of the jobs, I just shake my head, and I'm not saying one position's any more important than the other. But I look at our town hall, they have 4 staff members in the business manager's office. Accountants, bookkeepers. She described them as bookkeepers. We basically have 1, besides the department head. And they pay all the bills and everything. I mean, it's kind of everything, buck stops here.
And excuse me, Jody, when you say the buck stops, that includes the school department.
Yeah.
Because she has to review and sign off on everything that comes from the school department.
You know,
So we have 1 and they have 4, is that what you're?
that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you're saying they have 4 to
Well-
run $30 million?
That Alan's putting his hand up 5. They actually count the assistant to the superintendent in that budget. I broke that out, what her salary is, so I took the position out of there. And they have, and I'm not sure what this person does, secretary for registration. I'm not really sure. So the number they have in there is 6. It's 4 bookkeepers, the assistant to the superintendent, and the secretary to registration. I broke them out. And for an example, and I'm not gonna sit here saying one position's any more important than the other, but I look at the assistant to the superintendent, and I kinda put it in the same category as the assistant to the town manager. I don't have their numbers yet, but I look at that, and I can tell you right now, this one's gonna be higher. I don't need to see if they got a raise or not. You know, and I look at these things, and I told Bernie, I could cut $500,000 out of this budget over a cup of coffee. And I haven't looked at teachers, I haven't looked at any of the social services, I just wasn't gonna go down that road. I basically looked at administration.
That's where the fat is.
Yeah.
I would, you know.
And
I'm gonna say it, I don't
Yeah,
care,
no,
you
no,
don't
I-
have to
I'm
say it,
not
I'll
disputing
say it.
that. You
I'm
know,
not ashamed to say it, they have a lot of fat in the
But
administration.
it's
in the
troublesome,
school.
I have a
Have for
friend
years.
who does a lot of work for other cities and towns as a consultant, he's an engineer. And I said to him the other day, I said, what do you think about the school department in Wareham having their own plumber? He says, you're kidding. He says, New Bedford has 24 schools and they don't have a plumber. They do have an HVAC person though, but they don't have a plumber. So I'm not saying they can justify it and look at the bills, but they have 2 buildings. I know they have the elementary school, but I'd like to think things aren't gonna break right away in that.
And plus some of the numbers, how many are they were grant people and now they're with us? Were they able to asterisk them so you kind of know
No,
those?
I don't know.
Okay.
And I'm gonna get into the kind of the grants
Yeah,
and stuff,
sure.
but, you know, so the sheet I have, it's not on this one, it says the grant that these people are being paid partially out of.
Okay.
And Bernie has it, the copy in front of him. But there's a lot of grant money being used in different places. They didn't put so much for the teachers, but the paraprofessionals.
But Jody, if I can interrupt you once real quick.
Certainly.
So, grant money. Now, I did some research on the grant money, and you say that some positions are paid with grant money. But when this grant runs out, they get a new grant. If you look at the structure amount of the grants over the last 5 years, they are within a very close range. So one grant ends, another one starts.
And I agree with
Like
that.
I said, if you look over the 5-year period, the grant money is real close to being a steady line.
Right. And I
So that
agree with that
one
somewhat,
thing,
you know.
Goes
you know,
up and
6 to
down.
1, half dozen to
It
the
goes up and
other.
down a little, but
And it stays pretty steady, I looked at that.
Which gets me to my next point with this, but you all will get a copy of this when, I give the same thing to Derek to get all the department heads, what everybody's making, how many people are in that department. I mean, I like the idea of looking at this, and they have 45
Great
elementary
stuff.
school teachers, regular teachers. You know, the high school has, I don't know, X number. So the other thing I brought up, and I brought up when we were at a meeting, this $1.8 million that they're spending. And I said, you know, if I was running a business, and Dominic, you run a business, I wouldn't wanna have to take that out in 1 year. I said, did you think about maybe expanding it out a little bit and taking a little hit at a time? And they said they thought about it, and they just wanna, and I know where they wanna go with it, but I don't agree with it, because even if they took half that money now, they're looking for lights in, maybe Alan or somebody, it's a lot of money for the lights in the auditorium. And they want lights for the stage. You know, that's money that could have been used there instead of payroll. That roof furnaces, there's maybe some money there they could have used. I think next year, and I understand what Derek said, I get it, you know, they're hoping for this and hoping for that, and you heard that, hope's that 4-letter word. But the school department, if I was to vote on a budget now, and they're just one budget, a department within the whole budget, I would vote no to recommend.
Sure.
The way this sits right now. They said they need to cut about $500,000 more to get down to 3%, because they're at .47? 4.7, excuse me.
Yeah.
they need to get down to 3, and that was kind of the agreement. I could do that as I sit here, because there's a couple other things in here that really have me upset, or angry, mad, whatever, call it whatever you want, because I don't know if the guys remember the meeting we went to with the superintendent and whoever, because I just bitched and complained about 2 principals in the elementary school. And I remember my ex-friend Dominic over there, I said, I went to a high school, I had 960 kids in my graduating class. We had 1 principal, and Dominic corrected me, said he had 1,200 and something in his.
13 and change.
13 and change in his. We had 1 principal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was said to me that they just want to do it for a year. And I thought because of pensions or something else, and I understand loyalty to employees, I get it. Well, I look at the budget this year, last year was assistant to the superintendent, special projects. Now they have on here administrator, period.
They're not even giving them a title.
And the salary is going into the elementary school, coming out of the elementary school principal assist budget. So I'm asking myself, are they just backdooring this? And this isn't a
It
little bit of
sounds
money,
like it.
it's $136,000.
Sounds like it.
It's a,
That's an administrator in.
it's an administrator.
In
They-
what building? Are they in the school department over here, or are they
Well,
in
it's
the
listed,
elementary
it's
school?
listed administrator under the superintendent's office, but how did they word it?
Where is their
It's in the
office?
Wareham Elementary School administration budget, but it's
That's where it
listed
appears in the budget.
where it appears in
Which
the
it
budget.
physically is,
but-
could be different.
Well, and that's what my question
Yeah.
is it, are they actually working in the elementary school, or are they in the
Well-
main office?
Doesn't matter where they actually work out of, it's what
Where
work they're
the
doing.
money's coming out of, right?
I asked for I asked for a job description.
Yeah.
That's the only question that didn't get answered. And I sent a whole list of them.
Good for
You know,
you, good for
Sounds
you.
like quite a few of them need job descriptions, based on the.
You're right, you know,
Yeah.
it took me 3 years to get to the town side to where I'm very happy with it, and it's very, like I said, I could defend it. But this school budget, I think,
Tack on benefits. Tack on benefits.
Oh,
You're
right.
talking the gross
yeah,
benefits.
no, that's just their salary, I'm just going by salary.
Right, but
Figured
if you tack on-
134,000, you're probably looking at about another
You'll be able to get
35,000 in
40%
bennies.
more if you tack
Yeah.
on
A
benefits.
lot more
Yeah.
than 30-some thousand.
Well,
And
I
then
always
if you're
figured a
not
third.
In teacher's retirement, but in regular retirement, you could even get more.
Yeah, but a third was the number they kinda use in the private sector, so if you're making 100,000, you can figure another 35,000 in
But this
bennies
is
and
the
stuff.
public sector over here.
But, I think, as a committee, I think we need to look at this, I'll be honest, I didn't look at what they're paying for lights and oil and like, all those things, because those are fixed costs more or less, they gotta turn the lights on, they gotta heat the building.
Jody, I'll give you something to go against each other. Look at the administration budget for Upper Tech and compare that in percentages of the money they get compared to the administration budget here for the money they get.
Yep.
Almost 10 to 12 times more. It's huge. It's huge.
And Dominic, when you speak of the Upper Cape budget, that includes their benefits.
Yeah.
When we talk about the school budget here,
Comes
doesn't
out of the
include
town
that.
end, yeah.
Yeah, Doesn't include budget, that $30 million does not include, health or retirement or
Yep.
anything like that.
Yeah,
Administration numbers in there. has to be-
it's funny, my daughter-in-law teaches at Upper Cape Tech, she's a English department, somebody. But I had a nice conversation with her, and they got kids going out on co-op, and I know Alan was saying, we're not being fair to these kids all the time. On co-op, $100,000 a year.
Yeah. These kids are making more than
100,000.
4-year college students, and
And they're working full-time every other week. With their hands, I
the
understand.
only other thing, Ellen, that bothers me is, the kids
100,000.
from Upper Tech are going to all these towns and doing a lot of things. Wareham is not using them enough. To build things and to do things, we should, even, Harbor Master, marine engines, Sandwich, Bourne, Falmouth, they're all using the kids', work ability from Upper Tech, but we're not. We do a little, but we're not using it enough, but we can. We're paying to educate these kids from our money. Why not use them to help the town on on whatever, doing whatever.
Geez, Dom, you'd be cutting into their income. My grandson just bought a $15,000 pickup truck. He graduates
Well, that's
in a
great.
couple months.
I'm
And
glad for
wait a
him.
minute,
Yeah, I mean, the kids on the, and it goes to what Alan said, one of the meetings, I've always said, kids need to come out of high school with some kind of marketable skill. It might be college, it might be the military, it might be a trade or technical school, like,
Sure.
trade schools when I went to school.
Yeah, right, me
You
too.
know, but they come out with something, with, you know, how we get to that point, you know, Wareham High School, but this school budget really needs to be,
Well, let's get him.
get 'em.
I'll work with you, we'll get him.
You know, they're a department, I'm not, but like I said, I didn't look at any of the teachers.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not looking to hurt you know, the social services. You know, I mean,
But you
Administration.
have to understand what what's a day in their life is, and the jobs they do, and then what's replaceable and what you can eliminate and so forth. You can't just do a carte blanche. You have to, because you're saying like there's a lot of fat in administration, and there is, but the problem is, this is how companies in states, in governments and countries fail, is because they don't have the administration, they don't have the infrastructure to be successful. So you can't just carte blanche it, you have to understand the jobs. Do you know what I'm saying?
well, that's true, you have to,
and
Your things
I
are-
totally agree with that. That's why I said, that I'm not gonna sit there and tell them they have to have classrooms with 20 kids in them. I'm just throwing a number out there, you know, so the teachers know that. They
No, the
do
teachers
what's best
know.
to teach them. When I look at the administration stuff though, in my mind, and this is just my own personal thing, I know what finances is, I know what a bookkeeper does. To have 4 of them in the same office, while there's only 1 in this building,
But my wife runs she's a CFO for a $20 million company, and they have a 6-person department. That's pretty typical to have, for a $30 million business, to have 3 to 5 financial people. That's not uncommon.
well, you need them to satisfy the general gap requirements. And, but in some cases, and let's say with our own department, accounting, if Nina goes out sick, Judy's the only one left.
Well,
There's only one,
look at the town
But
clerk's
the town-
office is closed because they're sick.
But that's is that an understaffing issue, or?
yeah,
It's
that's
an
what we're
underst-
suffering from.
For sure, 2 people right
Yeah, I mean, accountants are impossible to hire. They're just not out there.
I mean, I think another thing about this is the school finance situation is very complex, and the record keeping is very complex, and maybe the town is too. I think the fact that the town is understaffed isn't a reason to try to get the schools to do with less or within an inadequate number. I'm not saying the number is definitely needed, but I do think it is a very complex.
And I'm not
Situation.
disputing any of that, but I do go, I've said before, I've got my favorite towns I go to and go in and look at their budgets and see what they have for staffing. Because when they use Munis, you can go right on there and see
Which
how
leads-
Yeah,
who's getting what in that department.
And that leads me to, why do we not have decent software? Why are we
That's what I was gonna
limping
say.
along?
It's only
Okay.
17 years old. for
Why are we
crying out
limping along with
That's the FAA,
unsupported
that's the FAA why they don't.
okay.
That's, we're gonna wake up one day and all our flights are gonna be canceled in this
Okay,
town because
excuse
we don't
me.
have the right
I have to
software.
interrupt because we've gone way beyond any other business unanticipated.
Munis is very, just for the
Well,
training
I
in the
wanna
town
look at
was-
schools the other way. My concern is the kids that are going out of this school system to other school systems.
You wanna know why?
No, yep, I wanna say that that's the measure for me as to
Okay.
whether the school department's doing a
We
good
can,
job or not.
I'll schedule them on
Is it
our
a sys-
agenda.
Is a system that the parents want their kids to go to. what it
I'll schedule them on
offers.
the agenda and we'll find out why. And,
No, I mean,
well, no, but I mean, give them a list of questions that we're gonna ask them so they can come prepared. And I think that's a valid
But that, I
thing
mean,
to
that's
do.
that to me is the real, if they're overspending, that's one thing, but the other part of it is, how well
Are
are
they
they doing
successful?
as they're educating
Yeah.
kids?
That goes to my marketable skills,
Well, I'm
Do
not,
something.
I'm not so sure of the
I think I
marketable
lost control
skills
sometime around
issue
here.
is the-
When did I do that?
is the end, because the marketable skills now that the kids are coming out with 10 years from now are gonna be bumpus.
Yeah, that's like getting
Back
a
up.
marketing degree
Back
right now
up.
is pointless.
I'm
Just go, just go to what you do.
Well, I'm not talking a marketing degree, I'm talking some kind of life skill.
The speaker
It doesn't work. It doesn't, he didn't stop.
Order in court.
Motion to
That little
adjourn.
sissy thing doesn't work.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
No, excuse me, oh, okay.
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 I
I'll
just
take my
wanted to make
second
you
back.
aware that we'd meet, that Jody had indicated regarding the grants and the spending. With Jody, was Norma, myself, Alan was there. We also had a previous meeting that we've talked about for the grants, so we are paying attention to the school system and getting some answers. And Alan, have you seen any charges against the Degas borrowing still coming through?
No, but there's stuff going on with the transportation revolving account.
Okay,
And there's a bunch of things, you have to look at it constantly. When we had our meeting and stuff, we kind of gave them a one-time deal, let's straighten everything out and go forward clearly, no games. I still don't have a lot of faith in it.
okay, we'll try to stay in, at least stay in the background
And,
if you're working on that.
what you've been discussing is, if you look at the administration or administrative type of jobs, non-teaching jobs, over the last 3.5 years, with COVID, which has paid for a lot of it, which has gone away or going away, CARES Act money's gone. You're gonna see there's been a huge increase there. So their structural deficit is probably 2 to 3 times what everybody thinks it is in the next couple of years. And that's part of it, but when you talk about the accounting departments, we only have one person, we should have 2 there. The accounting department here gets less pay than they get, substantially less than they get in
Yes.
school.
Yeah.
That's one piece. The school payroll is out of whack because there's never been any controls with the union contracts that control how much they get every year. It's just the way it's been, and it just grows on itself.
Okay,
And I'll finish real quickly, the accounting department here has to go through and redo almost all the accounting stuff that comes to the school department over to them to pay.
because Judy signs off on it, she's the certified person to sign off on it.
There's a
Can't
lot
write a
of
check till she has approved it, and then it goes to John Foster.
Yeah. There's just a lot of issues that are endemic because this is the way they've run it for the last 50 years. You're not gonna change this overnight.
No, of course not. But also, they're developing a new member handbook, as well as for the chairman, vice chair, and clerk. I was proofreading it for Judy, and so that's coming out, so, gosh, there's an awful lot of things we weren't doing, I can tell you that. But then again, we managed to do it all. But I think, Jody, you usually have the last word. What is that?
I do have a question. I heard this, no, this is,
wasn't
no,
what
this
I'm
is
looking
something
for.
maybe more towards Ellen. What was the meeting I was watching? Today's Wednesday, must've been Monday night planning
You have
board.
nothing else to
They
do?
approved minutes for structure and not content. How come? Okay. Well, shaking his head yes too.
What was the question, Jody?
They approved the minutes. I make a motion to approve the minutes in structure, but not content.
There are
Was
two
that-
members who have a strong disagreement about how it should be
But
done.
it voted, it got passed.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just know that there's a disagreement,
I think that's Carl.
Okay, I didn't understand it. I'm saying,
yeah.
what is this all about? So it's just because they didn't like,
Because there are two people who couldn't agree on how much content there should be, and therefore, it was just sort of a, yes, these are the minutes, I don't really like the way they're done.
so if
They forgot my quote.
You just gotta volunteer for doing them.
The problem with minutes, and both, and that a lawyer in the building here should know better than anyone else, is that when you do minutes, even though the state's made it more difficult, you try to put the minimum amount of content in the minutes, because if you put too much in there, it usually allows you to have a lawsuit come against you.
He's almost
Potentially.
ready, Sandy.
But also, as a lawyer, if you don't have enough to back up what you did,
That's right.
that's a
attachments.
problem for the town as well.
Yeah.
that's
Well,
what they
we
say
were meant
legality,
to-
if you go in the
We talked
court of
about it the
law.
last
You ready to
meeting,
go, Dave?
to make sure we're attaching documents to the meeting,
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah, it just struck me as odd, I
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
When's the next meeting?
Second.
Well, I'll have to notify you of that, because we're waiting now for stuff to come in that we can validly address.
Your ride is here, it looks like.
Thank you, Dom.
Boss is here, Tom.
Take some candy, this is leftover Christmas candy that I don't want.
I have to date all these, but I
Can I have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nobody
structurally.